What do you think the difference is between socialism and communism?
So that's a very good question, and there's actually no agreement, I think, among even scholars about where socialism and communism, where the boundary line between them runs. People conventionally, I mean, if you ask people about communism, they associate it with, say, I don't know, Stalinist Russia or Mao Zedong's China, for example. But that, of course, is not what communism was meant even by those people to be, right? Communism was supposed to be a social arrangement in which goods were held in common, in which the economy was run in a certain way. Socialists agree. That is, the thought is that the means of production, this is Marx's phrase, would be socially owned and controlled, and that there'd be no private ownership of those means of production. And I think both socialists and communists would agree about that. Now, the question about what would happen with consumer goods, I think, might be a case where they would differ. So if you look at, say, Ursula Le Guin's science fiction novel, The Dispossessed, which she describes as an ambiguous utopia, you see what I think would be counted as a communist society, that is one in which not only are the means of production held in common, but actually nobody owns anything. People just take what they need and give what they can, right? From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, as Marx would have put it. Socialists don't typically want to go down that road. They want to say, look, the means of production, yes, we'll have socially controlled, but if you want to have your own house, we're not going to stop you, and make it your own, right? Nobody else's house. That's your business, right? But I think the boundary is not very clear.
How do you think the role of the state plays in motivating people towards forms of socialism or communism? It's sometimes said that communism, is the inevitable byproduct of socialism, with the withering away of the state. What do you think about that?
Well, that was Marx's own thought, right? But so he had this, I think, completely wild view that you could start off with a extraordinarily hierarchical and tightly controlled way of getting from capitalism to socialism, and that this would then just magically disappear, right? As though there'd be no vested interest by those who brought this about in staying in power, let's suppose. Turned out he was wrong. Bakunin had predicted he'd be wrong, and Bakunin was right. So the state has its own character, right? What it is a mechanism for coercing people for whatever good or bad end, and of course that shapes people. And so the reason anarchists are opposed to the state is partly because it does produce this kind of person, a person who is either interested in controlling or willing to be controlled. And anarchists think that by itself is going to be make it very difficult to achieve anything we'd call a utopia.